Hey friends, welcome back to another Freebie Friday. This week we're going to be sewing up a plushie from Sew Desu Ne, the AvoCATo. It's from her starter pack plushies. Her instructions are absolutely amazing, y'all. This is my first time sewing a plushie ever, and I'm doing it on camera, and I would not have felt comfortable doing it if it was not for the fact that her instructions, like, she basically holds your hand. She tells you every single thing. Any question that you have, she already knows and answers it. This instruction packet is absolutely amazing. So definitely, I do recommend following along with that as well as this video, because if you have any other questions, she's already answered them. It's an absolutely amazing instruction packet. Okay, so the first thing we're doing, since I am using Minky, you can use a bunch of different kinds of fabric, but I'm going to use Minky. You have to find the nap of your fabric. To do that, you're just going to brush your hand up and down the fabric. And then you'll see how it kind of changes color there. That's the nap. And you are going to want to sew your pattern so that the nap is going up and down on it rather than side to side. All right, now that we know that, we're going to flip our fabric over, and on the wrong side of our fabric, we're going to trace out our instruction piece. I just used Crayola washable marker, worked great. You can use anything you want really, but you do want to make sure you get that done. Now that our pattern pieces are all prepped, we need to cut them out. So I started using my regular fabric shears, but this Minky was not fun to cut. It's super slippery. So I ended up switching to my rotary cutter. My main source of cutting is my rotary cutter. I'm just better at it. I can go faster with it. And I noticed too that it didn't slip as much. So yep, here you see, I'm switching over to rotary because it just so much faster. If you're not as practiced with the rotary cutter, just stick with your scissors. It doesn't matter which one you use. But I did, when I got to those more curved spots, I did switch back to my scissors just so that I could get those really nice and defined, which I can't quite get with my rotary cutter the way I can with my scissors. Okay, so we just need to cut out both pieces, and then we will be ready to start preparing the face. Now that our fabric is all cut, I'm just checking my nap again just to make sure that it's in the right direction. I did use Minky, and because of that, it likes to shed. So I'm going to pull the loose ends around my piece and then just kind of shake them out. She does have some other techniques in her tutorial if you want something a little bit more advanced than what I'm doing here, but this worked just fine for me. Maybe if you have like something that really sheds quite a bit, one of her other techniques might work a little bit better. But you're going to get this nice lovely pile of little sheddings, and then you can be like me and just wipe it right onto the floor. Okay, now that our pieces are fully prepped, we are going to add the seam allowance on them. This is a little different than her instruction packet. So what I did is I took my pattern piece and I cut out around that dotted seam allowance line. I started where it says leave open, and I left that space, that bottom space between the two leave open sides, whole so that I could match it up easier with my pattern piece. In the tutorial, she said she doesn't necessarily say to add the seam allowance. It's kind of, you can either trace the seam allowance and then cut out like a bigger piece and just cut around that and then trim your fabric, or you can cut out the piece and then just use your machine for the seam allowance. This was just a little extra bit for me, and it did help me a lot. So now that we've got the seam allowance removed, we are going to add it to our piece. And you can see there's about 1/4 inch around the entire piece for our seam allowance. And I'm just going to take my marker and just trace that right onto there so that when I'm sewing, I just have to follow this line and I don't have to worry about, did I sew too much here? Do I sew too much there? This method gave me a really good, crisp, just a really good seam to follow. So everything looked really nice. So I did like doing this, especially for my first time. I think if you're a little bit more advanced and a little bit more practiced, you can probably eyeball it a bit better. So as you can see, I left that leave open space open so I know where to start and end my stitching as well. So you're going to do that on both sides. You don't really have to do it on both sides. After I did that, I was like, I don't need to look at both sides to sew it, but I did it on both sides anyways. Maybe this way, it doesn't matter which side you're on, you can just sew it. But definitely, I did prefer doing this method. Okay, after we have that done, we are finally moving on to our face. Okay, now it's time to start on our face. So with the face, there's several different techniques you can use. You could paint it, just lots of things. I decided to go with applique just because I love applique. It's something I enjoy doing. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your pattern piece and you're going to get some Heat and Bond light sewable. This stuff is fantastic. If you're doing applique, I definitely recommend having a roll on hand. It lasts forever because you don't need much to do your pieces. All right, and what you're going to do is you're just going to lay it over top of your pattern piece. You'll be able to see the lines pretty faintly, but you'll be able to see them. If you need to, you could use like a light box too, that helps. So once we see our applique pieces, we are just going to trace around them now. Trace on the back side of the Heat and Bond, the paper side. So just trace along those, and then that will give us our applique pieces to cut out. Or then we'll add them to our fabric and use those to cut out our applique pieces. Okay, so these are the pieces that I'm going to use for my inside of my eye and my mouth, since those are going to be the same fabric. I had a different kind of fabric for my my outside eyes and the little tiny white part on the inside of the eyes, and that already had some backing on it. So instead of tracing, I'm just going to cut those out and then trace them onto the paper side of that, as right here, what you can see. I did use felt for my applique pieces, and it looks great. That was one of the recommendations that she said, was to use felt, and I wasn't sure how it would look with the minky, but it looks really awesome. So here you can see I am putting my pieces back in because I forgot to label them. This one, I don't think it's super important, but it is a good idea to remember to label like what side your pieces are for. Other words, they can get a bit jumbled and confusing. So now we're going to cut out the little white for the middle of the eyes. These are really finicky pieces. They're so small, but definitely worth it. Another great thing would be to see if you could convert it into an SVG file and cut them out with like a Cricut. I think that would be a really awesome way to do it. All right, next we are going to do our belly. And I started to cut it out because I was going to do my belly in felt, but then I remembered I got some white minky that I actually wanted to use for my belly. So I went back through and traced it on my Heat and Bond. Again, as you can see, this stuff lasts forever because you don't need a huge bit of it. All right, now that we've got all our pieces traced and everything, we need to start cutting them out. So the stuff that already had backing on it, the sticky backing on it, I'm just going to cut it because I don't need to attach the Heat and Bond or anything. So we're just going to cut those little bits out, and then we'll start working with the Heat and Bond. That is a different technique on doing it. Here you can see those little finicky pieces again. It's hard, especially to get them to be really nice and round because they're just so small. I think I did switch to my smaller like snips, which helps a bit more than these big old pieces, but nope, guess I didn't this time. Okay, now we are going to start using the Heat and Bond. Because I'm using minky with my Heat and Bond, I want to make sure that I protect that fabric. So my iron is going to be set to medium low, and I'm going to put it, the Heat and Bond piece to the back side of my fabric. When you use heat and bond, you should mirror the pieces. I didn't because it doesn't really matter, but sometimes it will, like if it is supposed to be truly mirrored, do mirror your pieces, other words they'll be backwards. I did that with some words the other day, some letters, and I had to redo the whole thing. Don't be me, mirror your pieces. And then I am using this heat protector just so that it doesn't damage my fabric, especially when I move to the minky. I want to make sure that my iron isn't too hot and that my fabric doesn't get too hot because it can melt. The same with this felt. I think because it's all like super polyester, it will melt really easily and really fast. So just using that heat protector was another little added source of protection. Just be mindful that you will have to probably hold it on a little bit longer to get that glue to really set. All right, now that our pieces, our heat and bond is on our fabric, all we have to do is cut out those pieces. And again, here's where I use my little snips because this mouth was so tiny. I think doing it on a Cricut would be top notch, like that would definitely be. But you can see that mouth is so tiny, but so cute. All right, and then just cut out the eye pieces, and those are my black pieces. And then once those are the pieces for the middle of my eye and my mouth, and then we've got the white for the outside of the eye and the white for the inside of the eye done. So next we're gonna move to our belly. So this is supposed to be like an AvoCAto cat, but I just made mine a little gray cat with a white belly. That's what my kids asked for. So I thought it was cute. Again, especially with this minky, making sure that my iron isn't too hot and that I use that heat protector. And then I check the front of it to make sure that it didn't get, because your minky can kind of get a little funky if it does get too hot. It can kind of adhere together. So once that's done, we are going to cut the belly out, and then all of our applique pieces will be prepped and ready to go. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay my front out, and I'm going to remove all the little fuzzies from the belly, but I'm going to lay out my applique so that I can see what it looks like and if I need to like fix anything or make little changes. And this guy's face is so stinking cute. Like my eyes are a little wonky here and I'm like, oh, hang on, let's try and fix that. That's why I like to kind of lay it all out before I start to sew, just so I can get an idea of what it looks like and how I'm going to prefer to do it. All right, then I'm just going to take the bottom layer and adhere those to my piece. So my bottom layer of my eyes and my belly, it just so happens they're also the same color, which is great. Sometimes they're not, but always just do that bottom layer when you start your applique, and then you'll build up on top of that. So then we're going to put that down, and then, just check your minky there, make sure it's not, and you can see I didn't leave it on long enough so it didn't adhere. So you just want to make sure it sticks, because otherwise it will move when you go to sew, and you do not want that. Okay, all that prep, and now it is time to sew. To do these applique pieces, you always want to lock your stitch. That's super important. So take a couple stitches and then back stitch a couple times. And then you're just going to sew around the applique piece. You can use a straight stitch, a zigzag stitch, a blanket stitch, really any kind of stitch you want. In the instructions, she recommends hand stitching. I'm not a huge fan of hand stitching. It takes way too long for me. So I prefer to do it on my machine. I know it looks like I'm going really fast here, but that's just because I sped up the video, because you don't want to watch like 5 minutes of me sewing in a circle. It's not fun. So it's really important when you do this that you do take it slower than you think you need to, and to not push or pull or let your fabric get wrinkled. So you can see my left hand is kind of guiding it, holding it a little bit in place, and then my right hand is guiding it again and making sure it's not wrinkled. I did go around twice. You don't need to, but just for my own sanity, I like to do it so it doesn't fall off. And then back stitch again, right? And it just needs to be like 1/8 of an inch away. And then I'm just going to go and trim those little pieces up. I don't always do that, especially because it's going to be on the inside. Nobody's going to see it. but for some reason at that point I thought it was important. So next we're going to do the eyes. These again take super slow, and because they're not perfect circles, I do stop, lift up my presser foot. You can see how it starts to wrinkle. Once your fabric does start to kind of get a little bit of a wrinkle in it, you want to stop, lift up your pressure foot, sorry, and then just kind of readjust that fabric, turn it a little bit so that it's straight. Again, I did around twice. You don't have to. My kids can be a little tough with stuffies, so I wanted to make sure that these pieces would not come off because I don't want to resew them. I would have to do it by hand at that point. And also, like, doing it twice, if I skip the edge, if I go off a little bit, at least I can hit it the second time around. So again, just make sure you're readjusting your fabric so it doesn't bunch up on you, and that you're going super slow, especially on these smaller pieces. Okay, now that those first layer pieces on, it's time to add our second layer pieces. Technically, the mouth is a first layer piece, but since it's the same color as these second ones, I just lumped them together. I'm just gonna lay them out here onto their matching sides, removing the back because the back is covering your glue basically. And then using the heat protector, we are just going to make sure that that glue gets activated. Yeah, just making little adjustments, making sure it's just right before, because once the glue is on, there's no taking it off really, not without messing it up. So, okay. All right, back at the sewing machine. Just like we did with those white pieces, we are just going to 1/8 of an inch away from the raw edge. We're gonna just sew around. This mouth it's so small, it's so finicky. It was kind of hard for me to get right to the edges. So you can see I'm lifting up my presser foot a little bit more. I think there are like applique presser foots that help you see better. This is just my main presser foot. I didn't really feel like digging through all my stuff to see if I had something that would work better, but this works fine. I did get to the edge that I needed. Especially I think if you use fabrics that are a lot more different in color. Since I used 2 dark fabrics, it was kind of like, wait, where is it? So the mouth, I would recommend going super, super slow on, just because it is so small, but so worth it. This applique process it makes it look so amazing. I think, yeah, even if you did painting or one of the other techniques, it would look really great. This, I just absolutely love the way that this turned out. Again, just going twice around in case I do miss something. It helped me feel a little bit more confident that I got it the second time around. So there you can see the mouth. Now we are going to do the 2 eyes. It looks like I'm going fast, but that's the beauty of video editing. It was not this fast. Applique is such a slow process, but it is so worth it. Like, every time I applique something, I never regret appliquing something, but in the middle of appliquing it, I'm always like, oh my goodness, what did I get myself into? So just enjoy it. Put on a podcast, put on some music, take it nice and slow, and just enjoy the process, because it can be pretty therapeutic. It's a nice way to slow down, because a lot of times, especially me when I sew, I'm a speed demon. So this is a good way to just kind of chill out and just sew slowly, but sometimes it does get me like, ah. Okay, is this thing not turning into the cutest thing ever? I am loving this project so far, and it's been fairly painless, so I'm just absolutely adoring it. All right, next we're just going to add this 3rd layer of applique on, and it's just going to finish off our face for us. Okay, I forgot to hit the record button on this part, so just enjoy me pretending to sew around the eye. This little guy is the absolute cutest thing ever. Like his little eyes and his mouth. I just love him. All right, moving on. We are going to start finally making our stuffy, putting it all together. This was actually the main part of it, was just appliquing this face on. So we're gonna lay our fabric pieces right sides together, just making sure we're lining everything up. And I really check that leave open thing just to make sure that those are lined up. Because Minky can be so slippery, you might notice it bunches in one spot, but you just want to make sure that, yeah, everything lines up and that it's not too crazy. Once we have it all lined up, we are going to take our pins. You know I'm serious if I'm using real pins. Like, I hate to use real pins. They are awful and they always stab me. All right, so we're going to take our pins, and because I'm using Minky, I am going to pin the living daylights out of this thing. Like, normally I wouldn't pin, or I would just put in a couple, but Minky is so slippery that I just cannot stress enough to overpin this thing. You will definitely thank me for doing that. I know it sucks because pins, like, are little vampires. They're always out for blood, and I'm pretty sure I poked myself at least 3 times already. So, but it is worth it, especially on those the round parts of the ears and the corners of the ears, because you don't want those pieces especially to get off. It'll be a nightmare, and they won't look quite as rounded and cute if your fabric slips at that point. So yeah, just keep pinning all the way around, and then we will get to actually start sewing this guy up. Ugh, I'm loving it. I don't know why I've put off sewing plushies for so long, because this has just been so easy. Like, her instructions, I seriously cannot stress enough how amazing her instructions are. I love it. She has every little detail in there and just made this such an enjoyable process. Okay, now it's time to sew. I'm going to start at my first leave this open area and sew right along that seam allowance that I traced onto it. I just use, again, a regular straight stitch, nothing too crazy, following that line. Don't forget to backstitch, especially when you start and finish this project, because that opening is going to be open, right? It's going to be a raw edge. You want to backstitch it so that when you stuff it, your stitches don't start to come out. So definitely don't forget to do that. You can see, of course, even with all my pins, my Minky was slipping and sliding everywhere. I probably could have used a few more pins. But yeah, this is why, though, I liked adding that seam allowance on there, so that I knew exactly where to go. I didn't have to worry about focusing on like where my fabric was at in regards to seam allowance. All I had to do was just focus right on that line and keep it as close to that line as possible. So it really helped me out big time. All right, and we are getting to the end here. Again, we're going to stop at that other little spot so that we have that opening to help us stuff it. We are in the home stretch, y'all. Our face is on, our body is all sewn together. I am going to pull on my seams here just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Again, Minky is so slippery, so by pulling on them, it's going to really help me make sure I didn't miss my fabric. All right, now what we need to do is we need to go through and we need to clip those corners on the ears. That's going to help it so that when we flip our fabric around, those ears will be nice and rounded. It just helps the fabric be able to adjust itself so it's not so stiff. Make sure when you're clipping that you do not clip past your your stitches. If you clip through your stitches, it's going to create a hole and you're going to need to restitch. So I just made little tiny stitches, or little tiny clips. You can see there, they're just super tiny. Okay, now we're going to flip our fabric, right sides out. And you can see, look at this cute guy. Oh my goodness. All right, I'm going to use my purple thing. Again, great tool. I'm going to use it to kind of push those ears out, and you can see how nice and rounded that whole thing is. All right, now it's time to stuff. She recommends taking your stuffing and really just pulling it apart and fluffing it so it gets to be nice and fluffy stuffing. I started with a smaller amount, but she does recommend overstuffing the stuffy because the more you cuddle it and use it, the more the flatter your stuffing is going to get. The first thing you need to do is you need to stuff those small ears parts. So stuff the smallest parts, and then you're going to work your way from the closed end to the open end. And just put that stuffing in there. I thought having a little squeaky in here would be so cute for a pet toy. This is the perfect size for it. And it just would be so cute with a little squeaky. But yeah, just really make sure you're stuffing it. If you're noticing wrinkles on the edges, just stuff it some more and those wrinkles will go away. So yeah, here you can see I'm like, oh wait, I do need more stuffing. So yeah, just stuff it to how you prefer. Y'all, we are so close to being done with this guy. He is so cute and I can't wait. Okay, so we do need to close him up, and to do that, we do need to hand stitch. I know. I was not a fan of this part, but I will say it was totally worth it. You could use your machine, it just won't look as nice and it'll be hard because it's so thick. All right, so you're gonna take your thread it through your needle, and then you're gonna fold it in half so that these ends are the short ends are right next to each other, right? So just fold it right in half. Sorry, my camera was having trouble focusing. But fold it in half, and then you're going to knot it. You will see here that I decide to knot it like crazy. I went not overkill, mostly because hand stitching makes me so nervous. I'm always worried it's just going to come right out. Don't ask me why. I don't know. It's no different really than a machine. But I guess don't ask me. I have no logical reason for it. But so I just knot it like crazy. I do recommend maybe if your kids are like mine and they really love on their stuffies, or if you were going to give this to an animal, because I do think it would make a super cute little cat or dog toy with a squeaker in it. You probably do want to make sure your knot is more than just one time, because they'll love on it and it will get pulled on. But yeah, I think I knotted it like 50 times here, so you might not have to go that overboard. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just paranoid about it. All right, now that we've got it all knotted, we need to make sure our ends, our raw edges on that opening, are folded in 1/4 inch. They should kind of naturally want to do that anyways, but just check, because especially if you're using like a woven, you don't want it to fray, or like the minky, you don't want it to get pulled like fluffy or anything. All right, we're going to take our needle and we're going to go from the inside to the outside of our fabric, and that's going to just lock that knot inside the opening, so you won't feel it. All right, now we're going to come to the back of the fabric, and we're going to stick our needle into the fold of just that back piece. So stick it into the fold, and then you're going to go to the left about 1/4 inch. So you stick it in and you kind of weave it back up through the fold. I hope that makes sense. So you don't stick it in and pull it out and then stick it in again. You push it in and then kind of direct it back up. That's going to help you keep that in the area. And then you're going to move to the back of your fabric, or the front of your fabric, I'm sorry. And you're going to do the same thing. You're going to stick it in, weave it over, and then go to the left 1/4 inch and then come to your other side, or right, depending on what side you start on, right? going from one end of the opening to the other. This is a ladder stitch. She does a way better job of describing this in her tutorial than I do. So if you are new to ladder stitch and you're listening to me and I'm speaking like Latin and you're like, we're in a different language here, definitely go check out the tutorial, because she just describes it really well. All right, and as you are closing it up, you might notice that, he needs a little bit more fluff. So go ahead and have some ready and just stuff him a little bit more, because once that thing is closed, you are not going to want to open it again. So yeah, and then again, she recommends over fluffing it, making it more fluffy than you think you need, because the more you play with it, or love on it, the more that is going to get compressed, the more. So, all right, and you are going to do this all the way across. I did do my stitch. I didn't quite do an actual ladder stitch, if you're following along. The way I did my stitch worked fine. I did like a half ladder stitch. Oh goodness. I'm just seeing that now and like, wait a second, that's not how I told you to do it. This worked fine too, in case you were wondering. So yeah, do it this way, do it the true ladder stitch, whatever you want, whatever you feel most comfortable with. Because because I use Minky, it didn't really matter what I did. You're not going to be able to see it. The nap of it is going to cover it. So you can finish it there, or you can go back through. Like you can see, I'm kind of pulling it apart to see if maybe my stitching was a little too far apart in some places, because I don't want that to have extra stress and then some of the stuffing to come out. So I did turn it around and sew it back the other way. Again, my kids are just super lovey with stuffies, and I want this to last as long as possible because they are obsessed with it. Like, they've been asking me all stinking day when they can have it. So definitely, if you're feeling like you want a little bit more security, a little bit more stability, go back through. If you're like, no, just once is fine, you feel pretty confident with your hand stitching, then yeah, one time. Don't be don't be an overachiever on this like I am. You probably really don't need it, but okay. Once that is done, what we need to do is we need to take now and take our thread, and we're going to pull up one of the loop that we just did. So we're going to pull it up, and then we're going to stick our needle. Yeah, I'm trying to show you the thread. It's not quite focusing, but you're going to stick your needle through that loop of thread, and that's going to help knot that. So I stick it through, and I stick it through actually a couple of times, again, because I'm crazy. I don't know if you need to do it that many times. Yeah, I'm really trying to show you the loop there, but you can kind of see it. But so yeah, the loop, you're going to just stick it through, and that's going to help, again, knot up those stitches. And then you'll see I do it multiple times. Just make a knot as secure as you feel like it needs to be. I stuck it through and then stuck my needle through the loop that it made even. Again, I don't know. Okay, once that's done though, we now are going to stick our needle in where that is, and then about 1 inch to 2 inches on the other side, you're just going to pull your needle out, and that's just going to lock that knot inside, just like the other one. Just snip your thread, and there you go. Is this not the cutest little AvoCAto? Again, not quite an AvoCAto, okay. But is it not the cutest thing ever? Like, super cute. I absolutely love it. So easy too, y'all. Thank you for doing this with me. It was such an awesome project. It was not as hard as I thought it would be. Y'all are amazing, and I'll see you next week.